All right. She sank down onto the bench, tucking one leg beneath her, her stomach fluttering. When she looked over at Ben, Lainey saw the slightly crumpled letters in his lap, and her adrenaline went through the roof. "Where did you get those?" she asked quietly. "Does it matter, Delaney?" He sighed and shook his head, his eyes pained. "Why didn't you tell me about all these?" He held up the stack of 5 or 6 job offer letters she had received over the past year. Busted. She couldn't avoid talking about the rather uncomfortable subject any longer, and truthfully, she resented Ben a bit for forcing the issue. They'd been living their lives and coexisting peacefully until now. Lainey opened her mouth to explain, twisting her fingers together in her lap, but before she could utter a word, Ben cut her off. "You told me we couldn't move in together because you're still freelancing, that you didn't have a steady income." He swallowed hard and looked away, his tone colored with accusation. She nodded, staring at the concrete sidewalk in front of the bench. "Yeah, I know. But all this time you had the chance to land a regular job." He held out the papers like a fan of playing cards. "Every one of these companies wanted to take you on as an illustrator." Delaney's defenses slammed into place like steel walls. She would have hoped that he'd understand, but it seemed that his relational needs had overcome his capacity for empathy. "I told you when we started dating that I'm an artist, Ben. I have no interest in selling out like—" Lainey could feel the heat rise in her cheeks as she clamped her mouth shut. "Like who?" "Me?" he asked quietly. Delaney stared down the street at a tragic-looking mime who couldn't seem to get out of an imaginary window. She swallowed past a lump in her throat and shook her head. She had no words to offer at the moment. "I took the job at the newspaper so that I could do what I love and still pay my bills. Just because I'm not a starving artist anymore doesn't mean I'm not a real writer," Ben said dully. Delaney wondered absently whether he was trying to convince her or himself. "I'm not you," she whispered, her eyes welling with tears. Ben tossed the wad of letters into the trash can beside the bench and stood. Lainey craned her neck and tilted her head up to meet his gaze. Every trace of warmth and compassion had fled from his chocolate eyes, and his next words sounded so mechanical that they might as well have come from the disc-shaped robot who vacuumed her apartment. "I can't do this anymore. I'm done." Part of Delaney wanted to beg him not to go, to promise that she'd change, but in the end, she merely stared up at him from her spot on the cold, unyielding bench. She refused to apologize for who she was. Deep down, she knew that if Ben couldn't accept something so fundamental about her, clearly they weren't meant to be together. To sacrifice her way of life, her passion for him, would only do them both harm, and would be a roller coaster ride to failure. It was like dealing with her parents all over again. All she'd ever wanted from them was acceptance, and they couldn't even offer that. Apparently, neither could Ben. When he turned to walk down the street and back to his office, Delaney didn't stop him. She stared after him until he disappeared around the corner, then dropped her gaze to take in the iridescent cast on the feathers of a strutting pigeon at her feet. Eventually she rose and strolled wistfully home, stopping to check the mail before she hiked back up to her studio. Once inside, Delaney sank down into her burnt orange thrift store love seat, feeling as though she had just run a marathon, or had been hit by a truck. The same truck that seemed to circle her from time to time when it came to making life decisions. She sifted rather mindlessly through the mail. It was easier to busy herself with mundane tasks rather than facing the emotional upheaval that Ben had just wrought, and tossed the junk mail aside. She stopped short, her heart rate accelerating a bit, when she discovered an envelope with a stamp that said, "Time sensitive." The return address was Iberden, Vermont, her Grandma Marcy's hometown. Grandma Marcy was